Hello everyone, and welcome back to Wolf. Now, you've probably noticed that things look a little different. As a matter of fact, even the ground looks different, even the little bar at the bottom of the screen looks different, and we are not playing as Lucan right now, we are actually playing as Lightfall. Now, if you saw the last episode of Wolf, you probably remember the very, very tragic death of Cloudsong, who was Lucan's mate and Lightfall's sister. Now, Lucan was pretty upset about that, and so was Lightfall. But, after that, Lucan actually got so upset that he ran away. And Lightfall didn't know what happened to him, but kind of had a general idea of where he'd been heading, so Lightfall actually decided to follow him. Now, unbeknownst to Lightfall, Lucan headed back towards Yellowstone National Park, where he was born and grew up. So Lightfall decided to follow him, and has been trying to track down his friend and pretty much the equivalent of his brother-in-law ever since. But he hasn't been able to... Oh, there's a beaver. There's a beaver, there's a beaver. Beaver, 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 beaver. Get it, beaver. But Lightfall has been trying to find his friend and brother-in-law ever since, because Cloudsong's loss hurt both of them very, very deeply. However, so far... I gotta turn the music down, I'm sorry. It's too loud and I can't think. But so far, Lightfall has been unsuccessful. But he has been continuing to search, and so if he can travel for a month and survive in the plains, he may make his way all the way to Yellowstone and be able to possibly play a part in our Wolf Quest series. If not, Lightfall's story will end and we may never see Lucan again. Or Lucan may show up as a side character in our main Wolf Quest series. But basically, Lightfall's only objective, he doesn't have to worry about finding a mate. He doesn't have to worry about any of that. He just has to survive. And he has to do it for a whole month, which I'm not exactly sure how much time we were able to spend with Lucan, but I think it was probably getting near a month, especially if we start sleeping through the nights. So the simulation is set to only be 1 month long, and this music, I'm sorry, the music is very dramatic in the background, and it's difficult for me to think past it, but, what is he seeing? What is he or she? I don't actually know. This is Drifthowl, so this is a female, so we should also meet the other wolves in Lightfall's pack, so we'll go ahead and do that real fast. But if Lightfall can survive for a month, the simulation is actually set to automatically end, and if and when that happens, if Lightfall doesn't die, if nothing super dramatic happens to chase him off his quest, then we will say he made it to Yellowstone and the protected area, and he may show up in a side story, or he may show up as one of our wolves' mates. He may even find Lucan again, and if we get that far, I'll kind of explain how that might play out. So, but the wolves that are currently in Lightfall's pack are actually Drifthowl, which is the female in the pack, and then Cephus, who is the male. Now, ordinarily, Lightfall would be trying to woo Drifthowl and become her mate, but right now he really doesn't have any of that on his mind, so I think, actually, if you look at them, Cephus is 7 years and 8 months old, and Drifthowl is only 1 year and 8 months, so I think it's probably pretty safe to say that Cephus is Drifthowl's father, especially since they have the same coat. They're both gray. So Lightfall bumped into them, and is quite probably, because I think Lightfall says he's a little bit older. It says he's 5 years and 8 months. Now, I think we decided he was a little younger, though, because Lucan was only 3 years. So, I think what happened was these two probably bumped into them, and Cephus, who maybe lost his own mate and so has been traveling with his daughter to try and help her find a mate, and possibly just stick around with her and follow along and maybe benefit from being a part of her pack. Sort of like how Katari and Terrell may spend a year or two not visibly, but following their offspring. But I think Cephus is kind of hanging out with his daughter Drifthowl as she looks for a mate, and he may see Lightfall as a potential young male and perhaps be trying to convince Lightfall that he should move on from the past and settle down and become mates with his daughter. But Lightfall would really rather find his friend slash brother, basically brother-in-law, and see what's going on with that. So we'll have to see whether Lightfall decides to settle down or whether he ends up, and here's the den actually, or whether he ends up continuing to follow Lucan. We shall see what happens. But there's kind of that interesting little dynamic playing into it. Now, keep in mind, a lot of this is story. And how are our vitals? Ooh, we need water. Water is far away. Is there any, if we go past the den, is there water? Can we go past it? Past it yet? Are we past it yet? Nope. Are past it yet? Nope. But keep in mind, a lot of that is just story to kind of add some drama and add some... But this is a den. This is a den. Is our den still this way, I guess? What? Okay. Oh, and you can see there's even different types of prey here. But this is kind of just adding to the story and kind of making things a little bit more interesting. Real wolves don't have that complicated of thought processes. They kind of just do their thing based off instinct. But for the sake of the story, we're going to add into it a little bit more and say that Lightfall is pretty desperate to find his friend. And yeah, he and Lucan didn't always get along. They were kind of rivals a little bit. They were sort of the brotherly type who would kind of be hanging out one minute, wrestling each other into the floor the next. They really did eventually start to get along pretty well, but Cloudsong's death really shattered all of that. And so Lightfall is pretty desperate to find his friend. And if we bump into Lucan in this, because remember, Lucan could also appear as an NPC, then we will consider Lightfall's mission a success, and we will go ahead and say that Lightfall can come to Yellowstone, because that is where Lucan is heading. So we're going to get a drink of water, and then we will go ahead and spend the night, and hopefully we don't have anything as dramatic happen this night as the last night we spent, where Cloudsong tragically passed away in her sleep. We really don't know why. We think she probably had some sort of illness that nobody knew about, that maybe she didn't even know about. What the heck is going on? They went running off for some reason. I think Lightfall would keep sleeping. He's not overly attached to them. He's just sort of traveling with them. However, Cephus kind of has plans, perhaps, for Lightfall that Lightfall is rather unaware of, and is kind of trying to set Lightfall up with his daughter. So we'll go ahead, we'll pass the night. We know now that we can pass the nights quickly if we sleep through them. So, and you'll notice the terrain is different. That is because we are actually in the plains. We're going to say that, because before we were playing in the forest, we're going to say that Lucan headed away from the forest and back towards because, you know, Amethyst Mountain has some plains area, and kind of headed more into sort of a plains area on his way back to Yellowstone. We're not actually told where Wolf takes place. It's basically left up to the imagination. It's kind of a fictional world, but somehow it connects with Yellowstone, and I kind of imagined that it may be sort of near-ish to Lost River, which is somewhere that Lucan actually passed through. That is actually where he first met Cloudsong, who found Lightfall, who had wandered away from that area a little bit later on. And are we going to be able to take this one down? We actually might, if we can get close enough, but we got to see if we can run closer. Is it limping? It's not limping, but neither is it running away from us. There we go. Now it's running away. We may follow it. We'll follow it a little bit and just see if we can potentially get... Oh, maybe we won't. Maybe we will not. Maybe we'll head the other way and head back towards our den and not get killed by a hunter. Because they're... Oh, gosh. That's a very close human. That human is one away. That human was one away. Now, too, how strong is this guy? Even weaker. Hey, that actually worked out in our favor, perhaps. We'll come after this one instead. So Lightfall is kind of just passing through here. He's really not intending to stay and settle down, and I have it set so that the simulation will actually end after 1 month. So if we can make it 1 month, the simulation will end and we'll know it's time for Lightfall to make it to Yellowstone. If he dies before then obviously he's never going to find Lucan. Obviously he's just gonna end up staying dead. Depending on how it happens, we may give a little bit of leeway because it is fairly easy to die in Wolf, depending on the situation. But we also, if something dramatic happens, like what happened to Cloudsong where she died so suddenly, that could potentially change Lightfall's story as well, depending on how his possible relationship with Drifthowl develops. We will have to see. If he does end up starting to fall in love with Drifthowl, which may be determined by what you guys think should happen, then maybe he will settle down and kind of give up his quest to find Lucan. If he does not end up falling in love with her and deciding to stay, he very well may continue on and enter the world of WolfQuest. Now, Lucan will still not be the heir. The heir is going to be chosen as another wolf. However, just like our side story wolves can play into our heir's story, Lucan may very well play into their story as well, because Lucan did make it back to Yellowstone. Now, Lightfall doesn't know that yet, but we may see Lucan again, especially if Lightfall does end up showing up. We'll just have to see how it all happens. And we're going to be pretty careful because there's a human, and we don't want to get shot. It's usually a good thing to not get shot. Oh, we're going to jump on it and just see if we can do this. Oh, that's really close. I cannot actually tell which is lower. Oh, we got it! Oh my goodness! We actually got it. That was a caribou. Okay. And we can actually eat off of that. Now, normally we don't really want to, oh, we're going to have a little message. So, it says the largest wolf's teeth are the canines or fangs, which may reach 2¼ inches in total length. These are the tools that help the wolf hold on to its prey. The cutting and chewing is done by the carnicels or flesh teeth, the 4th upper premolar and the 1st lower molar. These specialized teeth are much like a pair of self-sharpening shears and function well in cutting tendons and tough flesh. The massive molars help crush bones. So we'll go ahead and let Lightfall eat. I totally forgot what I was saying. But yeah, he may have an impact on our wolf stories if he makes it to Yellowstone, and he may even become one of their mates, depending on how things happen. Now, I'm very, very concerned about that human being so close. We actually also need to go and get some water. Now, there is water over by the den, so we're gonna head that way. But remember, we want to try to avoid hunting, especially the large prey, too much. Who is this? Ah, this is Cephus. Cephus is the beta male. I think that's because he's older. He's kind of content to just be... Oh, and there is his daughter, Drifthowl. He's kind of content to just be a little bit lower in the ranks. And remember, wolves don't normally have such determined ranks. But since Cephus is indeed a little bit older, he may very well have... not become so much of the lead wolf anymore. It depends. Also, I would guess that he and Drifthowl are from a pack that sort of split up. Basically what happened with the Druid pack in Yellowstone. The Druid pack is actually in WolfQuest, but in real life, the real Druid pack actually ended up fragmenting after... It used to be super strong, but it ended up fragmenting because... I think its territory got taken over by another pack, which is a pretty rare occurrence, but the druids were substantially weakened, and so fighting did occur. I think a lot of its older, stronger members died off, and it was left with a lot of inexperienced juveniles who didn't really know what they were doing and who weren't as capable of defending their territory. I'm pretty sure. You guys could look up what happened to the druid pack. It's kind of an interesting story. But, and I remember I heard it a while ago, and it looks like night is falling, so we'll sleep through the night. And then we shall get some water. Do we have time to sleep through the night? Maybe we'll get some water first and then sleep through the night. It's very important to watch your wolf's vitals when sleeping, although I think it will automatically wake you up or not allow you to sleep at all if your vitals get too low. So we're gonna go ahead. Is this Drifthowl who's following us, or is this Cephus? That is Drifthowl. I'm not really sure what Drifthowl thinks about perhaps this whole, oh, there's Cephus, but, about this whole idea of becoming mates with Lightfall either. Perhaps she feels like it is her father just kind of pushing her, or perhaps she really does like him. We shall have to see. In any case, they're traveling together for a little while. We'll go ahead and let the night pass. That will help the month go by a little bit faster because it was taking forever when we were staying up all night. I didn't realize sleeping would speed up time, so we will try to sleep at night if we can. I also let stamina recover. It speeds up time if you're injured, etc., etc., etc. So, but yeah, so I suspect these guys are from a pack that was fragmented, or it died off, or whatever. It's no longer a pack that exists, and these two are kind of they're kind of the last remnant of it, if you will. They're most of the last remainder, and they're kind of trying to start a new life. Now, for Cephus, he probably won't have that much of a new life because he's pretty old already, but for Drifthowl, she is not even 2 years old yet. She has her whole life ahead of her. And I think that's probably really what Cephus is in and trying to do. He's trying to make sure his daughter lives a full life. And when a dashing young male like Lightfall comes along, well, he just might work his way into Cephus's plans for her. We shall have to see what comes of that. And in real life, too, though, I don't know if a parent would follow along with the dispersal child if the rest of the pack broke up. The parent might go its own way as well. But for the sake of the story, we're going to go ahead and say that, yes, Cephus did follow his daughter when she dispersed because the rest of the pack, it really just broke apart. So they don't really have a home to go back to, and Drifthowl wanted to take care of her aging father and make sure he was okay, so he came with her. And we'll go ahead and go this way because you can see we're getting a little bit hungry, and there's a bunny coming up. So I think it's kind of past this bison. And there are a lot of bison in Yellowstone National Park. That's kind of what the park is famous for. There's bison everywhere. I think the bunny bolted, so we're going to go this way. But there's just bison literally everywhere, and they actually cause traffic jams quite a bit. When I went to Yellowstone, we actually got stuck in a traffic jam caused by a herd of bison crossing the road. And there were bison running down the road in between the cars, almost smacking into them with those big horns of theirs. And it was a little bit nerve-wracking, but it was also pretty cool to see. But they're huge. They are almost the size of a car. They're basically as tall as a car. That's a pretty close human. I don't really want to follow that bunny towards the human. We're going to go the other way. Maybe we'll just go ahead and eat from a carcass. Something that's not going to run away or lead us to a human, hopefully. But it was pretty incredible, but it was also kind of scary because, they'll come barreling down the middle of the road and their horns are swinging and they're almost smacking into the cars and they're pretty much as big as the cars. So it's a little bit nerve-wracking in some ways. And I guess we don't have to be quite as careful with the food in this because we're not staying so long. These are transient wolves. I don't know. I think that is a thing to an extent. We gotta eat. There we go. So this is talking about some of the evolution of the wolf, which is based off Darwin's theory. But that's actually not what everyone believes. There's actually been some evidence found in recent years that is starting to point away from evolution. So it's really something to research. It's kind of fascinating to keep up with all these scientific theories. I was looking up at that a little bit I actually might do a video on that about what is niche, the game, because I believe in one of their promos they claim to be demonstrating evolution, but I'm actually not so sure that's true. Because if you look at the definition of evolution versus adaptation versus microevolution, which is basically the same thing, it's quite interesting. So I may do a video on that at some point. That's kind of just my take on the whole thing. But niche actually does demonstrate a lot more of adaptation, in my opinion, than it does evolution. But there is quite a bit of debate over whether or not evolution is accurate. Now, it generally is taught in most schools, but there's also a surprising amount of evidence that points away from it. So I really suggest you research for yourself. Learn about evolution and other potential potential other beliefs, because it's really a decision you have to make for yourself. Don't just believe what you're taught. Find out for yourself. It's a great skill to have, to be able to look things up and research them for your own. But anyway, that's just kind of a little segue. But it is very important. That's what science is. Science wouldn't be science if people didn't say, I mean, for I don't know how long, people thought the world was flat and everybody just accepted it until someone decided to find out if somebody had a different idea and decided to think, well, maybe it's not flat, maybe the world is round. And that was a big revolution. It was, people thought, people who didn't believe the world was flat was crazy. So it's very important to research for your own, because you know now that the world is round. It isn't flat like people used to think it was. So it's very important to do your own research and don't believe what you're told. But anyway, it's about time to wrap up the episode. We're going to leave Lightfall here as he rests, and we'll have to find out what happens to him, if he'll be successful on his quest, or if he will end up failing, or if he will end up falling in love with Drifthowl and deciding to stay with her and her father. We'll have to see what happens, but we're going to leave him here for now. We'll let him rest. And I will see you guys next time. But until then, this is Jay, over and out.